She's unconscious. Let us up or she'll die. My father's voice cracked through the apartment intercom at exactly 7 a.m. On the security monitor, I watched Jared scream at my doorman, his face twisted in a performance of terrified fatherhood. Beside him, my mother sobbed into a handkerchief, and my sister Melinda stared blankly at the lens. It was a lie. I wasn't dying. I was standing in my kitchen drinking espresso, watching the people who tried to destroy me 8 years ago bluff their way past high-end security. The doorman panicked. He swiped his card. The elevator chimed. 42nd floor. I didn't call 911. I didn't run. I looked at the jagged scar on my shoulder, a souvenir from the last time Melinda held a knife, and felt a cold, metallic calm settle over me. They thought they were ambushing a scared little girl. They didn't know they were walking straight into a trap. I walked to the door and threw the deadbolt open. If your family knocked on your door demanding you commit a crime to save them, would you open it? Tell me in the comments. They didn't wait for an invitation. As soon as I turned the lock, the door flew open, slamming against the wall with a violence that made the floorboards jump. Jared marched in first, his face flushed not with concern, but with the specific potent rage of a man losing control. Susan followed, gripping Melinda's arm like a vice. And Melinda, my sweet sociopathic sister, wasn't unconscious. She was scanning my apartment, her eyes darting from my high-end espresso machine to the view of the skyline with a look of pure, unadulterated envy. You changed your number, Jared spat, kicking the door shut behind him. Do you have any idea how hard it was to find you? I leaned against the marble island, crossing my arms to hide the way my hands wanted to shake. You found me, I said, my voice flat. Now tell me what you want and get out. We don't want anything, Susan hissed, her voice trembling. We need you to do your job. For once in your selfish life, you are going to be useful. She shoved Melinda forward. Melinda stumbled, then looked up at me with tears that appeared on command, glistening perfectly on her lashes. I made a mistake, Katie, she whispered. A mistake is a parking ticket, I said. This feels bigger. Jared slammed his hand on my counter. She took a loan. From the charity fund. $180,000. I didn't blink. You mean she embezzled $180,000? It was a loan. Jared roared. She was going to pay it back. But the audit is Monday. We need you to fix the logs. They didn't come here for money. They knew I didn't have that kind of cash liquid. They came here because they knew what I did. I wasn't just a girl who ran away. I was a senior data analyst for a forensic auditing firm. I spent my days hunting people who tried to hide money in digital mazes. They wanted me to use my credentials to access the charity's system and bury the evidence. And if I say no? I asked. Melinda smiled then. It was a small, terrifying thing. Then Dad tells the police you hacked the system, she said softly. You have the skills. I have the password. Who are they going to believe? The sweet volunteer or the estranged sister who hunts criminals for a living? The room spun. It was a perfect frame job. Use my skill set against me. I looked at them. The father who watched me bleed, the mother who turned away, the sister who held the knife. Fear clawed at my throat, hot and sour. I needed them out. I needed them gone before I did something that would land me in a cell next to them. Fine, I said, letting my voice crack. I'll help. But I can't hack the logs from here. I need to create a transaction to confuse the algorithm. Jared let out a breath, his chest puffing up. Do it. Now. I pulled out my phone. My fingers flew across the screen. I opened my banking app and selected a contact I'd never deleted. Melinda. I typed in the amount. $10. I typed in the memo field, Federal Wire Fraud Facilitation Fee Transaction Number 1. I hit send. The notification chimed on Melinda's phone. She looked down, confused. $10? What is this? I turned my phone around so they could see the screen. That, I said, my voice steadying into the cold rhythm of a judge delivering a sentence, is a digital paper trail. I just sent money across state lines connected to an admitted crime. By accepting it, you didn't just steal local funds. You engaged in wire fraud. I didn't fix the logs, Dad. I just handed the FBI a receipt with your names on it. Jared's face went purple. Now, I said, pointing to the door. Get out of my house before I forward this screenshot to the district attorney. Thought it was checkmate. I thought I had one. Jared didn't argue. The threat of the FBI has a way of sucking the oxygen out of a room even for a narcissist. He turned a shade of gray I'd never seen before, grabbed Melinda by the arm and yanked her toward the hallway. Susan scrambled after them, clutching her purse like it contained the last of her dignity. You'll regret this, Jared hissed over his shoulder, but it sounded hollow. I didn't answer. I just followed them to the threshold, my hand hovering over the heavy brass deadbolt, desperate to slide it home and seal my fortress back up. I watched them step out onto the plush carpet of the corridor. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 8 years. It was over. I had won. Then Melinda stopped. She didn't just stop walking, she planted her feet like a statue. She was 3 feet away from me, standing in the open doorway. Slowly she turned her head. The tears were gone. The fear was gone. Her face was a blank, terrifying slate of nothingness. She looked me dead in the eye and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a shark sensing blood in the water. You shouldn't have sent that money, Katie, she whispered. She reached out, grabbed the metal doorframe with both hands to brace herself and whipped her head forward. Frick. The sound was wet and sickening, like a branch snapping under a boot. She smashed her own face into the solid steel jamb. Blood exploded from her nose, spraying across the white hallway walls and spattering onto my shirt. She didn't recoil. He did it again. Thud. Then she threw her head back and screamed, a high, shrill, curdling shriek that echoed down the elevator shaft. Kate, stop. Please. Please don't kill me. It happened so fast my brain couldn't process the physics of it. 1 second she was standing there. The next she was on the floor, writhing in a pool of her own blood, clutching her face. Jared and Susan didn't gasp. They didn't freeze in shock. They reacted with the precision of a drill team. Help! Susan screamed, her voice hitting a register that shattered the air. She's attacking her. Someone help. She's killing my baby. Police. Jared roared, pointing a shaking finger at me. She's got a weapon. Help. I stood frozen in my doorway, my hand still reaching for a lock that would never close. What? I choked out. I didn't. Ping. The elevator doors behind them slid open. They didn't open for a neighbor. They opened for 2 uniformed NYPD officers, guns already drawn, tactical lights blinding me. They didn't ask questions. They didn't survey the scene. They saw a bleeding girl on the floor, screaming for her life, and a woman standing over her. Hands. Show me your hands, the lead officer bellowed. I didn't touch her. I yelled, my hands shooting up. She did this to herself. Check the. Get on the ground. Now. He didn't wait for me to comply. He rushed past my screaming mother and tackled me. I hit the hardwood floor of my own foyer hard enough to knock the wind out of me. My cheek was pressed against the floorboards I had paid for in the sanctuary I had built. Suspect secured, he shouted into his radio. I felt the cold bite of steel cuffs ratcheting tight around my wrists. Pain shot up my arms, radiating into that old scar on my shoulder. She's crazy. Jared was shouting to the other officer, his voice thick with fake panic. I called you guys 10 minutes ago. I told you she was unstable. Thank God you got here. She was going to kill us all. The realization hit me harder than the floor had. 10 minutes ago. Jared hadn't called the police because of the noise. He had called them before they even entered the apartment. He had reported a violent situation before a single word was exchanged. This wasn't a reaction. This was a script. The embezzlement, the demand for help. It was all just to get them into the room. The real plan was always this. The swatting. Get the police to the door. Stage a violent scene. Frame the scapegoat. Please, Melinda sobbed from the hallway, blood pouring through her fingers. She wanted the money. She said she'd kill me if I didn't pay her. I tried to lift my head. That's a lie. Check the transfer. I sent her money. You have the right to remain silent, the officer barked, hauling me to my feet. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Susan was hugging Melinda, stroking her hair, looking at me with eyes that were perfectly dry. Jared stood by the elevator, nodding at the officers, the picture of a concerned, grieving father. As they dragged me out of my apartment, shoeless and humiliated, Jared caught my eye. He winked. Single slow wink. The door to my apartment, my fortress, my safety, my life, slammed shut behind me. And this time I was on the wrong side of the lock. The holding cell smelled of bleach, stale sweat, and the specific metallic scent of despair. It was freezing. A deliberate institutional cold designed to make you shiver until you were ready to confess to anything just to get a blanket. I sat on the metal bench, my knees pulled to my chest, staring at the steel toilet in the corner. The handcuffs were gone, but the phantom weight of them still circled my wrists, burning like a brand. When the officer had shoved me into the squad car, my head had hit the doorframe. The impact sent a jolt through my body that bypassed my brain and went straight to the scar on my shoulder. Suddenly, I wasn't 24. I wasn't in a police station in Manhattan. I was 16 again. I was on the kitchen floor in Ohio. The memory didn't come in pictures. It came in sensations. The wet heat of my own blood soaking through my t-shirt. The vibration of the floorboards as my mother, Susan, walked toward me. I remembered thinking she was coming to help. I remembered reaching up with my good arm, my fingers sticky and red. But she didn't stop. She didn't kneel. She stepped over me. She stepped over her bleeding daughter to get to Melinda, who was standing by the sink holding the carving knife, sobbing because she'd chipped her nail during the attack. "Shoo, baby, it's okay," Mom had cooed, turning her back on me. "We won't let you get in trouble. Katie just upset you. It's not your fault." That was the moment the chain locked around my neck. Psychologists call it learned helplessness, but I call it the invisible chain. It's that heavy, suffocating mechanism that wires your brain to believe that fighting back is useless. It's the reason why when the police kicked down my door today I froze. I didn't scream, "Check the logs," or "Look at her nose." I went limp. My body betrayed me. I remembered the lesson from the kitchen floor. You are the problem. You are the collateral damage. Silence is the only way to survive. For an hour in that cell I let the chain choke me. I sat there shaking, terrified that I had lost everything. My career, my reputation, my freedom, all gone because I dared to open the door. Then I looked at my hands. They were trembling, yes, but they were also manicured. They were the hands of a woman who typed 70 words a minute, who built complex algorithms to track money laundering through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. These weren't the hands of a victim anymore. I took a deep breath, inhaling the bleach, and forced the air into my lungs until the shaking stopped. They thought they had trapped me in their narrative. They thought this was just another version of the kitchen floor, where they controlled the story and I bled out in silence. But they had made a critical error. We weren't in their kitchen. We were in the New York penal system. And in this system, evidence matters more than tears. They had forgotten who I was. I wasn't Katie the scapegoat. I was Catherine Vance, senior analyst. I didn't need them to love me. I needed them to be on the record. And thanks to that $10 transfer they were. I stood up. The chain didn't break, I snapped it. The fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, crystalline rage. I walked to the bars and rattled them until the guard looked up from his desk. "I want my phone call," I said. My voice didn't crack. It echoed off the concrete walls, hard and flat. "You calling Mommy?" the guard sneered, not looking up from his paper. "No," I said. "I'm calling my lawyer. His name is Mr. Vance. And you're going to want to let him in because he charges $600 an hour and he hates waiting." The guard paused. He looked at me, really looked at me, and saw that the crying girl who came in had been replaced by something much more dangerous. He reached for the keys. The interrogation room was a study in sensory deprivation. Cinder block walls painted a color that couldn't decide between beige and vomit, a steel table bolted to the floor, and a two-way mirror that hummed with the silent judgment of whoever was watching from the other side. I sat with my hands folded on the table watching Detective Miller. He looked tired. Not the weary tired of a man working a double shift, but the soul-deep exhaustion of a man who has heard every lie ever invented and is bored by them all. He tossed a file onto the table. It slid across the metal surface and stopped an inch from my fingers. "Your parents give a compelling statement, Ms. Vance," he said, leaning back in his chair. "According to them, you have a history of violent outbursts. They say you demanded $180,000 to pay off illegal gambling debts. When your sister refused to give you her savings, you snapped. Slammed her face into a doorframe." He paused, waiting for me to scream, to deny, to cry. I did none of those things. I was done reacting. I was processing. "Gambling debts," I repeated, my voice level. "That's the narrative? They have witness testimony. Your sister has a broken nose. You have a motive. It's a clean case. It's a script, I corrected. And a bad one. I leaned forward. I didn't look at him like a suspect looking at a cop. I looked at him like an auditor looking at a discrepancy in a ledger. Detective, I assume you pulled the 911 dispatch logs? He frowned. Of course. What time was the call placed? He checked his notes, irritated. 9:14 a.m. Your father reported an active assault. 9:14, I said. And when did officers breach my floor? 9:17. Patrol was nearby. Fast, I nodded. Did you pull the building access logs from my doorman? Miller paused. Why? Because they show Henry didn't swipe anyone into the elevator until 9:15. I let the silence work. Which means my father called 911 1 minute before anyone could physically reach my apartment. Miller's expression sharpened. That's premeditation, I said. He wasn't reporting an emergency. He was following a script. This was a setup. Before he could respond, the door buzzed open. My lawyer, Mr. Vance, entered. Expensive suit, older money, no eye contact with Miller. He looked at me. Grim. Stop talking, Kate, he said quietly. We need a minute. Miller stood. Take your time. We just executed the search warrant at her apartment. The door locked behind him. Did you tell them about the server? I asked. The video proves everything. Vance folded his hands. Kate, there is no video. My stomach dropped. The server was destroyed. Smashed with a fire extinguisher. Your father claims you did it to hide evidence. I went cold. He knew about the cameras. He cleaned the scene. It gets worse, Vance continued. Melinda gave a statement. They're calling your $10 transfer a test payment. Proof you were extorting her for the full $180,000. Without the footage, it was 3 witnesses against me. The timeline gap would be explained away. They're going to win, I said. They're offering a plea, Vance replied. 5 years. Trial without the video means 15. Silence. Then it hit me. The $10, I said. Open your laptop. Kate. I'm a data analyst, I cut in. I don't trust hardware. He opened it, connected through his hotspot. Cloud backup, he murmured. Encrypted. Real-time sync. Exactly. The door opened again. Miller returned, smug, plea agreement in hand. You ready to sign? Vance turned the laptop toward him. Sit down, detective. He hit play. The video was flawless. Clear audio. The hallway. Me locking the door. Jared and Susan dragging Melinda toward the elevator. Then Melinda stopped. You shouldn't have sent that money, she hissed. She grabbed the doorframe and slammed her face into it. And again. Jared coached her. Harder. We need bruises. Susan staged distress. They counted down. They screamed. Miller went pale. That's a false report, he whispered. Conspiracy. Obstruction. Pause at 9:12, I said. The screen froze on me, showing them the transfer confirmation. The $180,000 was state theft, I said. But the $10? That crossed state lines. New York to New Jersey. Miller understood. That makes it federal wire fraud. Conspiracy. And 3 people acting together on tape. I leaned back. That's RICO. 20 years. Minimum. Miller bolted for the phone. Get the FBI. Now. Minutes later, 6 officers stormed the waiting room. Jared protested. Susan screamed. Melinda froze. Cuffs went on all of them. I didn't smile. I just watched. The numbers finally balanced. Let's go home, Vance said. 3 days later, my apartment was quiet. Solid safe. The news played. Federal indictment. Wire fraud. Racketeering. Their mugshots filled the screen. No bail. I stepped onto the balcony, poured the wine I'd planned to drink that night. Tasted like closure. I deleted their names from my phone. One by one. I spent 24 years trying to be worth something to them. In the end, I proved I was worth more than they could ever afford. If you're holding on to people who drain you just because you share DNA, let go. You might save your life. 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 You might